The Terry and Jesse Show, two Catholics with PhDs in common sense. I was doing some apostolic work on the side, and but I'm here with where I should be.
Amen, Jesse. Hey, we're just talking about the America has become the greatest exporter of destructive ideas. Our good friend Dennis Prager, he's a Jewish man, but I'll tell you what, much
a man of goodwill.
I agree.
Luke
99%. Yep, you got it.
Man of goodwill. Here's what he says. At the present time, China is the greatest threat to world stability. Check that box.
Yep.
Russia's the world's premier aggressor nation. Yep. And Islamist groups are the primary exporters of terror and religious totalitarianism. Yeah, this guy's got he's got a good head on his shoulders. And for the first time in history, America is the world's major exporter of destructive ideas.
Sad but
Check
true.
that box off.
Yeah, sad but true.
Yeah, very sad because I love this country.
Me too.
Prager writes, this is hard for me to write. One of my books is titled Still the Best Hope, Why the World Needs American Values to Triumph. It contrasts American values with leftist values and makes the case that the American value system is the finest ever devised. I define American values, what I call the American Trinity, as liberty, in God we trust, and e pluribus unum, Latin for from many one, the three American mottos found on American coins and banknotes. No other country has those three national mottos. The book maintains that any country can adopt those values, and any country that does adopt those values will be a good society. Its citizens will be the freest in the world, and that country will prosper. Indeed, those values are the reasons Americans have been the freest people in the world, and America has been far and away the greatest land of opportunity in human history. But America has been gradually abandoning its unique value system and is consequently becoming a less free, less humane, less prosperous, more corrupt country. In fact, at this moment, America is no longer the best country, the exceptional country it has been since 1776. There may not yet be a better country, but that is cold comfort. We are in the incredible position of being feared by many other relatively free societies. More than a few European countries actually reject America's current values. Wow.
Amazing. I'd love to hear this.
And the right to do so. The most obvious example of America in decline is the perverse American doctrine surrounding transgender issues. The sex gender of any individual is not a given fact. Men give birth. Men who say that they are women may compete in women's sports. And physicians in children's hospitals are right to surgically cut off the healthy breasts of young women and even girls who say they're boys. Are you kidding me?
Crazy.
America's war on truth, science, and children has rendered America increasingly an outlier in the Western world. More and more European countries are rejecting the perverse worlds of Yale and virtually every other American university, of the New York Times, and virtually every other mainstream left-wing medium, of Boston Children's Hospital and virtually every other children's hospital, and of the University of Minnesota Medical School and virtually every other medical school. Switzerland, get this, has just announced.
This is nuts, right? This is really good.
Yeah, these three paragraphs next are the nuts and bolts of the article. Because these are liberal countries. Yet, check this out. Switzerland has just announced that as far as the Swiss nation and government are concerned, sex is not. How'd
they figure that out?
Non-binary.
I think that's great.
They just looked at the birth certificate.
Yeah, you think?
In Switzerland, there are only two sexes. Yeah, just like Adam and Eve, there's only two sexes.
Exactly.
As has been the case in essentially every civilization in recorded history, because that is the reality.
Yep.
Look at this. As reported by AP, but apparently not in the New York Times or elsewhere in the mainstream left-wing media, Swiss citizens are entered into the civil registry as male or female, with no other option. The Swiss Federal Council declared the binary gender model, that's male and female, is still strongly anchored in Swiss society. Sweden, the America's left most admired society until it broke with the rest of the West by allowing its children to stay in school during the COVID-19 hysteria.
They got that right.
Has also broken with America on the transgender issue. Sweden's National Board of Health and Welfare ended the practice of prescribing puberty blockers for minors under age 18. And as of December, mastectomies will only be offered in the rarest of circumstances. Terry?
Yeah, well, Thomas Ledden, head of the National Board, announced young people who suffer from gender dysphoria need to be be able to quickly receive an investigation and to be offered adequate care measures based on health and medical services, assessments of the care needs. Good psychological care is fundamental. He said, in other words, if a Swedish teenage girl says she's a boy, Sweden will offer psychological care.
Psychosocial.
Psychosocial care. Almost, thank you, Jess. Almost never hormone blockers, let alone a mastectomy. So, see, they have more common sense there, sure, Jesse, and I just think it's great. Between Sweden's new policy on gender dysphoria, and it's allowing children to stay in school through the COVID-19 epidemic, an American must sadly conclude that at this time in history, and this is a fact, I hate to have to say it, Sweden cares for its young people considerably more than American does. Jess?
In England last October, the National Health Service announced, in the words of the Daily Mail, that, quote, children who believe they are trans are probably just going through a short-lived phase, close quote. Therefore, logic and morality say we should not make permanent life-altering changes to their bodies with drugs and surgeries. Here's my comment.
Common sense. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so these liberal European countries have more common sense than we do in America.
Oh, yeah.
They're putting us to shame, morally speaking. Here's 3 good news items in the article. Actually, 4 good news items. Mm-hmm. Number 1, in addition, the NHS England draft guidelines are part of the Health Services plan to close the highly controversial Gender Identity Development Service at the Tavistock Clinic, the country's only gender identity service for children. The Gender Identity Development Service, GIDS, is scheduled to shut its doors in the spring after a review ruled that the service was unsafe. Second good news item. Mm-hmm. Typical of the changes taking place in the UK regarding the transgender issues, Stella O'Malley, a psychotherapist and director of GenSpect, an international transgender care group based in England, advised professionals working with children need to make sure they aren't inadvertently causing harm by providing short-term relief that leads to long-term distress. Mm-hmm. At GenSpec, we don't think changing pronouns helps anyone. It creates more problems than it resolves. So this is in the UK.
God bless him.
Third bit of good news. Yep. In France, the National Academy of Medicine has issued a statement advocating psychosocial support rather than hormone blockers and surgery for young people with gender dysphoria. Good for France.
And about Finland.
Fourth good bit of good news. Finland has already enacted a similar policy decision as early as 2020. 13 European countries now reject the American non-binary attack on human sexuality and children. Sadly, with regard to children's well-being, there are many countries in which American parents would rather raise their children today. I never imagined I would ever believe that or actually be saying that.
Who would, Jesse? This is just, total nonsense. But you know what I've noticed, Jess? What's happened is when we throw God out of the equation of life, the meaning and purpose of life, this is the kind of stuff we get.
And this is what Pope Benedict, rest in peace, this is what he called the dictatorship of relativism.
Exactly.
In other words, that those in power that don't believe in God and just believe in the unholy trinity of me, myself, and I, they would impose laws, again, that just comport to their woke liberal ideology and force it upon the rest of us. This is sad to say because I love this country.
So do I.
But the USA has become a modern day Babylon. The USA has become a modern day pagan Roman Empire. And many cities in the USA, Terry, have become modern Sodom and Gomorrah 2.0.
And again, Jesse, this is what happens when you throw God out of the equation. And this is why evangelization is the answer. I mean, we can point out lots of problems in our own church, but you know what we have? We have the fullness of the truth to evangelize people that are so mixed up about reality that we want to share them. What is really real is that life is short and eternity is forever. That this little short visit on planet Earth that's what it is, a short visit. This isn't it. What you do here will affect your life, your soul's life for all eternity. And I don't think we've done a good enough job to evangelize people, because, Jesse, many of the people who are causing these problems are baptized Catholics. I have to say that.
Yeah, I think the worst people in power are baptized Catholics, to be honest with you.
Yep.
And I'll tell you who I blame for all this liberalism and this woke ideology. The mainstream media, number one, Hollywood, the woke culture in our colleges and universities. Our woke culture is manufacturing a mass psychosis. And the question that I have is, can sanity return to an insane world? Without Jesus, it surely can. No. America's going through a psychotic problem. What's the definition of psychotic? It's a severe mental disorder in which thought and emotions are so impaired that contact is lost with external reality. Most Americans right now, especially those in leadership, are psychotic.
Yep.
And what happens when you have psychotic teachers, psychotic administrations, psychotic politicians, and even psychotic church leaders? When we have these people in power, what happens to the next generation? We're raising a generation of monsters. If you don't believe me, just look at the young people that comprise Black Lives Matter, Antifa, Occupy Wall Street, Jane's Revenge, DC Shutdown. A good fraction of these young Americans, Terry, they're like zombies. So what's a zombie? A zombie is a reanimated corpse. A lot of these young people that are Marxist trained, they're walking around, Terry. They don't have a moral conscience. Nope. They have no heart. And all they want to do is destroy whatever's in front of them.
Well, Jesse, that's why we need to pray for our leaders in our church, because this is a Catholic moment. We can't let it go. We have to really evangelize the world now. And, there's an old saying from the book, Where's the Church Going? Where its leaders take them. Let's pray for leaders that will truly proclaim Christ to the world.